Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America studios here in Washington. It's Wednesday, April 20th. I am Shaka Sali.
Hello, Shaka, and hello to all our viewers and listeners on the continent and elsewhere. I'm Ayan Bior, your social media reporter.
Today, we'll talk about the 2016 World Bank-IMF Spring Conference and its relevance to Africa.
And coming up later in our STA inbox, you, our audience, have weighed in on our topic through your emails and Facebook comments, and we'll reveal some of them ahead on Straight Talk Africa.
Participants wrapped up the 2016 World Bank-IMF Spring Conference with a call for structural reforms to uplift slowing global economy. My colleague Esther Githui-Ewart has more.
The two giant financial institutions bring economic and financial experts together in Washington, D.C. annually to discuss regional and international development and other financial concerns. Jim Yong Kim, president of the World Bank Group, painted a grim picture.
In the global economy, there are not many bright spots around the world. We've just downgraded our global growth forecast this year from 2.9% to 2.5%. In this period of global economic slowdown, we're also facing major global challenges, forced displacement, climate change, and pandemics. And I want to stress that each of these three represent very clear downside risks to the global economy.
In Africa, emerging economies are burdened by debt, poor infrastructure, and slow technology. Several West African countries that were making gains a few years ago are struggling to rebuild their economies and healthcare sectors following last year's Ebola epidemic. Others have been embroiled in political wrangles, ethnic and religious conflicts, forcing hundreds to flee their countries, while others are internally displaced. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde called for global cooperation to deal with refugee and migrant crisis.
Every second, nearly 30 people are displaced somewhere in the world. Now that requires bigger, broader, and bolder approach, and one that is certainly based on cooperation amongst the nations. It cannot be the affair of one country.
Jordan's Queen Rania spoke about the plight of refugees. Her country hosts nearly 500,000 Syrian refugees.
More than 90% are living in Jordan's cities, towns, and villages. A demographic shock that is exhausting our social and physical infrastructure to its absolute limits. We know all too well that in our interconnected world, a crisis in one place is a crisis in all places. And we know what happens when people look at their future and see nothing.
Terrorism remains a pressing concern. Nigeria is spending millions of dollars fighting Boko Haram militants, while Somalia and other East African countries have spent huge sums fighting Al-Shabaab militants. During a panel discussion to discuss displacement of peoples, Somalia's Minister for Women, Human Rights and Social Development, Sahra Ali Samatar, gave her perspective.
Government of Somalia comes from failed state to fragile, having all unrest, politics, and challenges of security, challenges of services, challenges of terrorism. We know when there is a civil war, who are the most affected? Women and children.
Instability in many African countries is having a major impact on women and girls. The World Bank Group says it will invest $2.5 billion in education in the next 5 years, targeting adolescent girls in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama welcomed the news.
It's an expression of our belief in the power of education to transform the lives and prospects of millions of girls worldwide, as well as the prospects of their families, their communities, and of course their countries.
The World Bank's financial report on Africa concluded that economic activity in Sub-Saharan Africa slowed down in 2015, while lower commodity prices have put pressure on currencies. Some countries have made gains due to the drop in oil prices. Poonam Chauhan Paul is acting World Bank Africa chief economist.
Those countries that gain from the drop in oil prices are net oil importers, such as Kenya, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. We find that on average, the decline in the terms of trade has a larger negative impact on the region because of the large dependence on commodities in the continent.
Experts hope the three-pronged approach of fiscal, monetary, and structural actions will keep recession at bay and boost global financial stability. Esther Githui-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.